I'm just sitting there when Kelly Turner starts pounding on my door like a maniac screaming about safety violations. I laugh and tell her we're not even in her HOA, wrong house, lady. She gives me this death stare and hisses, "You have no idea what you just started." 2 hours later, she makes that call. I thought I'd won. I was dead wrong. What happened next completely turned my life upside down. Listen, I'm Aaron Thompson and I'm a tech guy. I deal with data systems and logic. But standing there on my first day in what should have been my dream house looking at Kelly Turner's manila folder spilling photos across my coffee table, my brain just broke. Like when your computer crashes and you stare at the blue screen thinking, what the hell just happened? These weren't casual snapshots. These were surveillance-level documentation. Aerial shots of my roof taken from God knows where. Close-ups of my mailbox numbers. Window measurements written in her disturbingly neat handwriting. Living room 72 in x 48 inches. Bedroom facing street 36 in x 36 inches. Every detail cataloged like she was planning a heist. When did you take these? I asked, my voice coming out strangled. Kelly's eyes never left the photos. Her finger tracing the outline of my front door like she was memorizing it. These split levels, she said, her nails scratching against the glossy surface. My father used to build houses exactly like this one. The way she said it made my skin crawl. Not past tense like a normal person remembering, but present tense like he was still out there somewhere, still building. Here's where it gets interesting, though. I'm the kind of guy who documents everything. Occupational hazard of working in IT security. So when Kelly started her whole welcome inspection routine, claiming she had authority over my property, I was ready. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and showed her my property deed. Clear as day, my house sits outside the Oakwood Estates Homeowners Association boundary. Not even close. We're talking a good 50 yards beyond their jurisdiction. But Kelly dismissed legal documents like they were grocery store coupons. Property boundaries don't override community safety protocols, she said with this creepy smile. As HOA safety coordinator, these split-level houses fall under community oversight due to proximity and safety concerns. Kelly handed me what looked like an official building inspection notice, complete with city letterhead and everything. Real professional-looking stuff, except I'm paranoid by nature. So I called the number on the form right there in front of her. City Building Department, the voice answered. Yeah, I've got Inspector Johnson here claiming I need an emergency structural review, I said, watching Kelly's face. Long pause. Sir, we don't have an Inspector Johnson. This sounds like fraud. The look on Kelly's face when I put the phone on speaker priceless. Like watching someone realize their lottery ticket was fake. But instead of backing down like a normal person caught red-handed, Kelly doubled down. Technicalities don't override community safety, she muttered, gathering up her photos with shaking hands. These split-level houses, my father used to build houses exactly like this. There are dangerous things that need to be checked. Ashley got home just as Kelly's golf cart squeaked away down the street. Yeah, this 52-year-old woman drove around the neighborhood in a golf cart like some demented security guard. My wife took one look at my face and knew something was wrong. Ashley's got this amazing ability. Comes from working as a 911 dispatcher for 6 years. She can read people's stress levels like a barometer. What happened? She asked, and I showed her the photos. Her reaction was immediate and professional. Aaron, this isn't normal neighbor behavior. She's exhibiting stalker patterns with specific target fixation. The fact that she documented your house before you lived here, that's premeditation. That evening, Ashley filled me in on what dispatchers call escalation patterns. The good news, Ashley said, sorting through Kelly's photos, is that you documented everything and called her bluff immediately. The bad news, people like this don't give up easily. They see resistance as a challenge to overcome. Then she said something that would prove tragically prophetic. I'm working a mandatory double shift this weekend. We're critically understaffed. I'll be covering the downtown district until 6 p.m., then switching to the residential zone. Just keep documenting everything. Okay? Around 11 p.m., I heard Harold Jenkins calling from his front yard next door. Harold's a 65-year-old retired cop with the kind of weathered face that's seen everything twice. "Son," he called over the fence. "Got a minute?" Harold glanced around like he was checking for surveillance. "She's been photographing your house for months," he said quietly. "And about that father comment she made. Did she mention anything about Peterson? The man who died here before you moved in?" The next morning I decided to investigate. While cleaning out the garage, I found something that made my skin crawl. Taped under Peterson's old workbench was a manila folder exactly like the one Kelly had brought over. But this one told a very different story. Peterson's handwriting was shaky, desperate. The folder contained a simple note. "If something happens to me, don't trust Kelly Turner. She has copies of my keys. She convinced me to make her my emergency contact for safety reasons. I was wrong to trust her. She watches at night. She measures my windows. She tests my locks. Can't sleep anymore. Can't take this anymore. If you're reading this, get out. Don't let her into any other houses. J. Peterson, March 2022. The photos Peterson had managed to take were even worse. Grainy cell phone pictures showing Kelly at 2:17 a.m. standing outside his bedroom window with a flashlight and measuring tape. Kelly testing his gate latch. Kelly walking around his foundation with some kind of electronic device. One photo was particularly chilling. Kelly standing in Peterson's backyard at 3 a.m. talking to herself, gesturing at the house like she was having a conversation with someone invisible. I immediately called Harold. Peterson came to me 3 times in his final weeks, begging for help. Harold's voice was heavy with guilt. Said Kelly was making his life hell, claiming she had the authority to inspect his house whenever she wanted. Police don't take neighbor disputes seriously unless someone gets hurt. By the time they would have listened, Peterson was dead. Kelly had manipulated Peterson into making her his emergency contact. She convinced him it was for safety, told him that split-level houses from the 1970s had structural issues that needed regular monitoring. Peterson was 73, lived alone, and didn't know any better. Kelly played on his fears, made herself indispensable, then used that access to torment him. Within a week of finding Peterson's evidence, Kelly launched what I can only describe as a multi-front psychological warfare campaign. Monday morning, 3 anonymous noise complaints were filed with the police. Tuesday, a concerned citizen called the building department claiming I was running an unlicensed business from home. Wednesday, Kelly's former coworker showed up, claiming there were reports of structural damage to my foundation. But here's where my IT background came in handy. I documented everything. Timestamps, phone numbers, GPS coordinates of when Kelly drove by to check on things. I traced the anonymous complaints through call timing patterns. Kelly would drive by our house, park for exactly 3 minutes, then complaints would be filed within the hour. My new security cameras caught her at 11 p.m. walking around my property with a flashlight, testing windows and doors like she was planning a break-in. Ashley came home Friday evening to find me surrounded by printouts, photos, and documentation. "Honey," she said, taking in the wall of evidence I'd created, "this looks like a serial killer investigation board." Ashley's professional training kicked in immediately. "Aaron, this isn't random harassment. She's conducting surveillance. The nighttime visits, the systematic testing of entry points, she's preparing for something." Ashley paused the security footage on a frame showing Kelly trying to peek through our bedroom window. "This woman isn't just obsessed with your house. She thinks she has a right to access it." Saturday evening, I was reviewing security footage when I noticed something that made my blood freeze. Kelly wasn't just walking around my property anymore. She was practicing. The cameras caught her standing at my front door with official-looking paperwork, talking to herself. "Yes, officer. I'm HOA safety coordinator. I need to check for emergency safety violations. The residents won't allow mandatory inspection." She was rehearsing, perfecting her story, getting ready to make a play that would force her way into my house. The woman was literally practicing fake emergency scenarios on my doorstep, and I had it all recorded in high definition. Sunday evening, 5:47 p.m. exactly. I was in my home office, Ashley was at the dispatch center covering her double shift transition from downtown to residential zones. And Kelly Turner was about to make the most catastrophic decision of her deranged life. My security cameras showed her pacing outside my gate, muttering to herself, clutching that same official-looking paperwork she'd been rehearsing with all weekend. What I didn't know was that in exactly 3 minutes, Kelly was going to dial 911 and try to weaponize the emergency response system to break into my house. And the person who would answer that call, my wife Ashley, was sitting in the dispatch center 20 minutes away, completely unaware that she was about to become an unwilling accomplice in Kelly's insane scheme. Here's how it went down. And I know because we got the full recording later in court. 911, what's your emergency? Ashley's voice, calm and professional like always. Kelly, breathing hard like she'd been running. This is Kelly Turner, HOA safety coordinator for Oakwood Estates. I'm at 1247 Oak Street. I can hear someone in distress inside, but the residents are refusing mandatory safety inspection. I need immediate police assistance to gain entry for an emergency welfare check. The genius of Kelly's con was that she didn't claim domestic violence or break-ins. She claimed authority. She positioned herself as an official trying to help someone in danger, blocked by unreasonable residents who wouldn't comply with safety protocols. Ashley, following standard protocol, asked, "Ma'am, can you confirm what type of emergency you're witnessing?" Kelly had practiced this part. "Someone can be heard in distress inside. I heard distressing sounds, but they've barricaded the property with security gates. As safety coordinator, I have the authority to inspect for community welfare, but I need officers to help me gain entry immediately." Ashley slowly recognized the address being repeated back to her. 1247 Oak Street. Wait, that's my street. That's my exact address. The moment of realization hit Ashley like a freight train. She's sitting there, dispatch headset on, looking at her computer screen showing units being deployed to her house. Her own voice, calm and professional, dispatching officers to potentially force entry into her own home based on the claims of some unidentified HOA safety coordinator. Meanwhile, I'm at home completely oblivious, reviewing security footage when I hear sirens getting closer. Then closer. Then they stopped right outside my house. I look at the live camera feed and see 2 patrol cars plus a supervisor vehicle parked in front of my gate. Officers getting out, checking their equipment, preparing for what they clearly expected to be a challenging situation. I walked to my front door and opened it before the officers could knock. "Good evening, officers. What can I help you with?" The lead officer, badge reading Sergeant Harris, looked confused by my calm demeanor. "Sir, we received a report from HOA Safety Coordinator Turner here that someone inside your residence may require medical attention. She's requesting assistance with a mandatory welfare check." That's when I realized the absolute brilliance and insanity of Kelly's plan. She wasn't claiming I was dangerous. She was claiming someone inside was in danger and she needed help getting in to save them. "Officer, there's no emergency here," I said, gesturing to my obviously fine self. "My wife is at work. She's a 911 dispatcher, actually, and I've been home alone all evening." Sergeant Harris looked between me and Kelly, clearly trying to figure out what was happening. Kelly launched into her prepared statement. "Sergeant, as elected safety coordinator, I have community oversight responsibilities. I heard distressing sounds and attempted to perform a wellness check, but the residents refused to allow mandatory inspection. This could be a safety emergency." That's when Sergeant Harris made the radio call that would change everything. "Dispatch, can you confirm the caller's authority and dispatcher identity for this call?" Static crackled through his radio. Then Ashley's voice, my wife's voice, came through crystal clear. "Caller reported as Kelly Turner. Claiming HOA position. Authority status unverified. Dispatcher handling this call is Ashley Thompson." The silence that followed was deafening. Sergeant Harris looked at me. I looked at him. Kelly looked confused. Then the nuclear bomb dropped. "Ashley Thompson is my wife," I said. "She's the one who dispatched you here." The revelation hit everyone simultaneously. Kelly's face went from smug satisfaction to dawning horror as she realized whose life she just tried to destroy. The officers looked like they'd been handed a logic puzzle designed by a madman. Ashley had sent armed police to potentially break into her own home, arrest her own husband, and assist a delusional neighbor in whatever sick game she was playing. Sergeant Harris immediately radioed back to dispatch. "We have a situation here. The complainant appears to have made false claims about emergency authority. The homeowner is cooperative and denies any emergency." Kelly, realizing her perfect plan was falling apart, made one last desperate play. "Officers, you don't understand. These split-level houses have inherent structural dangers. My father built houses like this. I know what to look for. There could be hidden safety violations that require immediate inspection." Even facing arrest, she was still trying to sell the story that she had legitimate authority to break into my house. That's when Kelly got arrested for filing a false emergency report, abuse of authority, and attempted breaking and entering under color of law. But instead of looking defeated as they put her in the patrol car, Kelly was smiling. Actually smiling. "Now you'll see," she called out as they closed the door. "The investigation will prove I was right. They'll have to search the house now." Even in custody, she thought her plan was working. The woman was so delusional that she believed getting arrested would somehow give her access to my property through the legal system. Ashley arrived on scene 15 minutes later, still in her dispatcher uniform, looking like she'd seen a ghost. "I dispatched the call she used to try forcing into our own home," Ashley said, staring at the patrol car where Kelly sat. "She played me like an instrument. She turned my job, my training, my dedication to helping people into a weapon against my own family. After Kelly's arrest, I became obsessed with understanding what we were really dealing with. While Kelly sat in jail awaiting arraignment, I dove into the paperwork the realtor had left behind. What I found made my blood run cold. Peterson had been keeping detailed records of Kelly's harassment, and the progression was terrifying. March 1, 2022. New neighbor Kelly Turner introduced herself, offered to help with property maintenance concerns. But by page 2 the tone changed. March 15th. Kelly insists on inspecting basement for safety violations. Claims HOA requires annual structural reviews. The entries got progressively more desperate. April 10th. Made Kelly emergency contact like she suggested. Seemed reasonable for senior safety. April 20th. Kelly has keys now, says it's for emergency access. Feel uncomfortable, but don't know how to say no. The final entries were heartbreaking. May 15th. Can't sleep. She's outside every night with that flashlight. May 20th. Found her inside the house at 3 a.m. She said checking for foundation problems. May 25th. I think I'm going crazy. Peterson's final phone log showed 3 calls to police about neighbor harassment, all dismissed as civil matters. 2 calls to Adult Protective Services. Both resulted in brief visits where Kelly convinced social workers she was helping Peterson maintain his property. Peterson had tried every official channel and failed with all of them. The police obtained a search warrant for Kelly's house. What we found in Kelly Turner's basement wasn't just evidence of obsession. It was a 20-year archive of psychological terrorism. Kelly's basement looked like a serial killer's trophy room mixed with an architect's office. Every wall was covered floor to ceiling with photographs, blueprints, measurements, and surveillance reports. All split-level homes built in the 1970s, all within a 50-mile radius, all documented with the same obsessive detail. The center of the basement contained what can only be described as a shrine to Kelly's dead father. A workshop table covered with his old construction tools, faded photos of housing developments from the 1970s, and dozens of awards for excellence in residential construction. But surrounding this memorial were keys to houses throughout the county, organized in labeled containers by address. Officer Harris found something that made everyone's blood run cold. A detailed floor plan of my house with notations about optimal entry points and inspection priorities. Kelly had been planning her invasion of my home for months, mapping out exactly how she'd gain access and what she'd inspect once inside. David Turner, Kelly's younger brother, arrived at the scene. Our father died when Kelly was 12, he told us, tears streaming down his face. Construction accident at a split-level housing development. Kelly never processed the grief, created this elaborate fantasy that residents had sabotaged his work, that his reputation needed to be defended. The psychiatric evaluation Kelly underwent while in custody revealed the depth of her delusion. According to the court-appointed psychiatrist, Kelly suffered from complicated grief with paranoid delusions, specifically triggered by architectural features reminiscent of her father's work. In Kelly's mind, every split-level house contained evidence that could either vindicate or condemn her father's legacy. 3 months later, we sat in a packed courtroom watching Kelly Turner's carefully constructed delusion crumble in real time. The prosecution opened with our 911 recording, and hearing Kelly's voice boom through the courtroom speakers gave me chills all over again. When Kelly took the stand in her own defense, the woman who had terrorized multiple families actually believed she could convince a jury that her crimes were justified. "Your Honor," Kelly began, "these split-level houses built in the 1970s have systematic structural vulnerabilities. My father was a master builder who specialized in this type of construction. When I inspect these properties, I'm continuing his legacy." The prosecutor's cross-examination was devastating because he didn't need to attack her. He just let her talk. "Miss Turner, did any homeowner give you permission to enter their property? Permission isn't required for emergency safety inspections. Did any government agency authorize your inspections? Community safety transcends bureaucratic authorization." Every answer revealed how deep Kelly's delusion ran. The turning point came when the prosecutor asked, "Miss Turner, what exactly did you hear that constituted an emergency?" Kelly's response made everyone in the courtroom freeze. "I heard the sounds of a house settling improperly due to foundation issues. The structural stress created auditory distress signals that indicated immediate safety concerns requiring inspection." The guilty verdict on all charges came back in less than 2 hours. Kelly Turner was sentenced to 3 years in prison suspended pending psychiatric treatment, 5 years probation conditional on treatment completion, $25,000 in restitution, and lifetime restraining orders protecting all her victims. But even as the sentence was read, Kelly maintained her delusion. "The structural evidence will vindicate everything," she called out as bailiffs prepared to escort her away. 6 months later, sitting in my backyard hosting a small barbecue for the neighbors who had stood with us through Kelly's reign of terror, I finally felt like I could breathe again. The psychiatric facility reported significant progress. According to David Turner, Kelly was slowly accepting that her safety inspections had been criminal violations, not heroic community service. Kelly had finally stopped talking about structural defects and started talking about grief, loss, and the 12-year-old girl who never learned how to say goodbye to her father. The woman who thought she was protecting community safety had actually made multiple communities less safe through her systematic violations of trust and security. Looking back at our house, the same house Kelly had obsessed over, photographed, and tried desperately to invade, I realized something profound. She called 911 to try forcing her way into our home, but that call became exactly what saved everyone. Some mysteries are solved, justice is served, and communities heal. Hit that like button if the story opened your eyes to neighbor red flags you might have missed. I'm your host, and I'll see you in the next video where we dive into another story that proves truth really is stranger than fiction.